Hi, it's Milton Kane, Christian Democratic Party candidate for the federal seat of Newcastle. I am very proud that I belong to a political party, one of the very few, if not the only political party, that will protect children, because we will protect marriage. We believe that marriage has some essential ingredients. Those ingredients are one man, one woman, making a commitment for life in the presence of others with the oversight of a living, real God. There are other people who would like to have other sorts of arrangements, other sorts of social contracts. And let's be honest, if they want them, then let's be prepared to look at them. The social contract of marriage is particular and peculiar in its particular way. Sure, there has been many attacks upon marriage over the years. Sure, there are many people who've started out in marriage and actually not successfully gone to its normal conclusion. That is the death of one of the partners in the marriage. There has been much language change over the years to try and diminish marriage. There has been an assault upon the term husband and wife, and so now it becomes partner. It was first of all spouse, and now it's come to be partner. My wife is not my partner, she is my wife. I'm not my wife's partner, I am her husband. That's as simple as that. We do have a complete partnership. And yet, when we look at partnerships, generally speaking, we go and look at a partnership which means based upon some division of authority, of power, of assets. Let's have a look at what marriage should be about. My share of the assets that I bring into the marriage is my wife owns 100% of them. My wife has 100% control over them. I also have 100% control over all of the assets that I brought into the marriage. I also have 100% control over all of the finances, financial decisions for those. My wife has 100% control over all the assets that she brought into the marriage. As do I. 100% plus 100% equaling 100%. You might think it is a strange equation. But you see, it is not a partnership which is divisible. It is an indivisible partnership. Other social contracts are about a divisible characteristic. They talk about the divisibility of it. One of the significant assaults upon marriage was in fact the no-fault divorce procedures. While it is true that I do not want to see marriages go through, when they get into difficulties, I don't want them to go into a slanging match of all the details and the dirty laundry that may or may not be involved. One would hope there is not such a thing. One would hope that the commitment to marriage is such that we won't see, we won't hear, we won't know, there will be no knowledge of, because there will be no shenanigans going on. But, being as we are, and recognizing the words back in the Old Testament, which refers to why divorce was given. Divorce was given because of the hardness of our hearts. In other words, because we choose not to be sensitive, because we choose not to be concerned all of the time about other people. We come to the point where we become very much self-centered and self-motivated, something that should be a foreign ingredient to marriage. You see, we can have various types of social relationships which deal with various levels of commitment. One of the things that we find is prenuptial agreements. What is a prenuptial agreement? A prenuptial agreement is simply, it's something that looks like a marriage. In some ways you might say it tastes like a marriage, but it isn't, because it actually has agreement for its termination. There is no agreement for termination of marriage. Marriages do terminate, yes, for sure. And I recognize that. I am not denying the obvious. But what I want to tell you is, if you have an out, someone is going to use it. And we need to work on the principle that we ought not to have an out. We ought to be very careful about the commitment that we make in marriage. We ought to be very careful that we understand what it means. Those people who are witnesses to our marriage ought to be people there standing around and cheering us along, supporting us all the way. And when they see we go astray, they ought to fulfill their responsibility as a witness. A witness is a reminder. Hey man, you're married. Why are you doing that? When was the last time one of your mates said that to you, those of you who are married? It's about time we stepped up to the plate and accepted the responsibility for the things that we do and we commit ourselves to. When we stood in the church or sat in the church or wherever the marriage agreement was declared, when we sat there, when we listened, when we participated, we were witnesses to two people making a declaration before us in the presence of God that they were going to be faithful to each other until the day they die, irrespective of any other circumstance. And we well and truly must remind people of this and do not undermine marriage. You see, the simple case of no-fault divorce undermined marriage. The term partner undermines marriage. And we should retain the strength of marriage. I believe that we need to put in place programs to let people be aware of the seriousness of the commitment for marriage. We need to make sure that people know what they're doing. There are other social arrangements, and they need to be acknowledged, and I will acknowledge them. There are many spouses who choose, there are many siblings who choose not to get married. They want to stay together. They were brothers and sisters in a family, and they want to remain in the family home because perhaps they never chose to marry and their parents have died, and their family home is left to them. For whatever reason, they don't develop other relationships. Those people ought to be able to have an acknowledged social arrangement. There are other people with other different lifestyles that I personally have a difficulty with, and they want to choose to have those sorts of lifestyles. That is a social arrangement. If that's what they want to do, I'm not going to stop them. But let them come with their terms and conditions to explain what their relationship will be. Let's make it serious. Let's do it right. But let's not go and undermine the subject of marriage. You see, marriage is one thing and one thing alone. And if we go and change and define it, and we try and smooth it over so everybody fits in it, it will have no substance. It will have no value. It will be of little consequence. To be honest with you, some people who say, well, we think that we should have same-sex marriage. Let me make it perfectly clear to you. That does not work. You may have a same-sex relationship, but do not call it marriage. I'm sorry. There are many ingredients in that which are very different. As I said before, and I make it perfectly clear, marriage is a contract that is made with the understanding of God being over it all. Marriage is a contract between one man and one woman. where they have committed themselves in the presence of others to remain faithful to each other until the day one or both of them die. That's the contract. Does not have an exit clause. And if you think that marriage is about love, let me remind you, the people commit themselves to each other to love each other. It isn't the love that causes the marriage, it's the commitment to love each other. That means during a time in the marriage when perhaps for some reason a dispute occurs and the people may not believe that they really like each other that much at that time. Because of the commitment to love, they will carry on and they will get over that tough time. Because the tough times will come. I remember the example given by my minister at the Bel Air Baptist Church at the time of my wedding to my wife Mary, where he said that as we go down the track, the marriage is a bit like a car, it needs a bit of service, and we skip the service. Things start to fall apart. That's when we need to get into real maintenance. That's when we need to remember the commitment to love will see us through a tough time. The commitment to love will see you through. That's one of the problems. That's the basic difference. Because people tell me, I should be able to marry whomever I love. I love my daughters. I love my son. I love many of my friends. But I can tell you something. I've only married my wife. And I will not marry my daughters. I will not marry my son. I will not marry my other friends. But I will not diminish my love for them. You see, we get things back the front sometimes. And that's why we get into a knot over it all. We need to set it out right. If we try and substitute the process for something that looks like and feels good, we'll probably get it wrong. We need to be sure that we're anchored to something strong and powerful, so that when the tough things come, that we can handle it. I think of my many friends who have been committed to love the person to whom they're married to, and during those tough and difficult days, when serious illness comes, causing a huge financial burden, the way that these people have served and cared and demonstrated their love to their very sick and dying mate. They have proven that they had a commitment to love. And they didn't bail out because it got tough. You see, marriage is about not bailing out when it gets tough. It's about sticking to it, staying there, staying the hard yards. I fully support marriage between a man and a woman. I fully support marriage as being a commitment for life, to love the person to whom you marry. I fully support that decision is witnessed by many in the community and declared in the presence of God who is creator of all. That's what marriage is about. That's what I'm committed to. Other relationships, yes, we can discuss them, we can talk about them. But that's marriage. And that's the way it is. Thank you.